welcome to the official opening of the Gene Lynch Urban Park. Let's hear it. My name is David Dice, and I'm the Director of Montgomery County's Department of General Services. And it is my distinct pleasure, let me correct that, it is I and my staff's distinct pleasure to present this park today to this very deserving, interested, and active community. I'd like to begin by welcoming those who are with us today, and I'm going to break protocol by beginning with the recognition of the entire Lynch family. Let's hear it for our distinguished guests. We're also here today recognizing other participants and speakers, beginning with County Executive Marc Elrich. Former Governor Paris Glendening has joined us today. District 4 Council Member, your Council Member, Kate Stewart. And Asuntha Chang-Smith, Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Executive Director. There she is. We'll be hearing later from Janine Kohler, who is the speaker representing Gene Lynch's family, but I particularly want to recognize his wife, Mary Ellen Lynch. Also with us today are other Montgomery County Council members, Lori Ann Sales. Where'd Lori Ann go? Where'd she go? She's in the back somewhere. I believe we're supposed to be joined by Natalie Fanny Gonzalez, but I have not seen her yet. But if she asks, tell her I mentioned her name. Maryland State Delegates David Moon and Lorig Charkoudian. There she is. Be nice to her. She got me some money for doing work at a library. So she's one of my favorite people. Mike Riley, Director of Montgomery County Parks, is with us today and will be speaking. And if I've left it, oh no, I do have some other folks here. Kevin Mack, representing Senator Ben Cardin. Kevin's in the back right there. Diana Eisenstadt, representing Chris Van Hollen, Senator Van Hollen. Joseph Ayong, my good friend, representing Congressman Jamie Raskin. Where are you, Joseph? There you are. And Michelle Whitaker is representing Councilmember Will Jawando. So this, we got only the best people to show up for this event, and it really is a marvelous event. As I like to do before we start doing some speechifying, I like to recognize some of the folks that brought this to you. And this is the outstanding crew that I had working on this project. From the Department of General Services, the Design and Construction Supervision team of Don Schurman, Suresh Patel, Leo Perez, Michael Kay, and Steve Kirk. And they're all here. Raise your hands, guys. There's Steve Kirk over there. There's Don Schurman. There's Leo. Fantastic job. Working in a site like this, you can imagine, has tremendous challenges. And this was being built during the middle of supply chain, post-COVID supply chain delays and material delays that really challenged the contractors. So we want to particularly thank the folks from Walker Willis. They are not here today because today is their company picnic, and we'll go over there afterwards for hamburgers, okay? BWE Construction and Engineering. I'm not sure if Wilson Pardo is with us, but congratulations to them. Parker Rodriguez Incorporated did the design and construction drawings, and I think Trini Rodriguez is supposed to be here, as well as AdTech Engineers. So thank you all of the folks that were part of this amazing project. Montgomery County Park and Planning Commission, Parks, was our design and construction partner throughout this process. So Mike's going to thank his folks, but I wanted to publicly thank Mike Riley and his crew for being beautiful partners here. This is a gorgeous 15,000 square foot park. Was actually a replacement park that used to be across the street where there's now other things going on. But we're glad to finally deliver this for for a mere $2 million. It is a beautiful park that will be a tremendous legacy for this community, and I would say very deservingly named for Gene Lynch and his contributions to the community. I want to begin by welcoming to the microphone County Executive Marc Elrich, who is a driver and a visionary and a force that keeps things going. I know that because he's always complaining that things aren't going fast enough. But it's a pleasure to work for Marc, and I'm going to ask him to come and speak to us.
So if David's got something to complain about, imagine how I felt about COVID. It was very hard to move things at a time when nobody was moving and getting together. So it is really nice to be back in an environment where we can talk about what we want to do and go about doing that work. I am so happy to be here today and honored to have just a keynote spot in this. Mary Ellen, always good to see you. I knew Gene from back in the day when there was all this contention about downtown Silver Spring. And Gene was on the right side of that fight. It's a familiar fight, though. It's residents fighting for sane planning. It's residents struggling to get heard by a planning board and then struggling to get heard by a council. And Gene was part of that fight. And at the end of the day, the massive mall with the water pool and the slide and things that would produce less traffic than that massive mall in Virginia, even though it had the same square footage, that did not land here. This open project landed here. And this open project, the concept for an open space rather than a mall space, came out of the citizen groups in which Gene played a critical role. So Gene was part of bringing sanity to the life and design of Silver Spring, and I really do appreciate all the years we worked together. Mary Ellen, in your house was a sign assembly place for Neil Potter. You know, we did all this work to try to make sure residents in this county got heard. And I always appreciated Gene's total devotion to that. And then he went on to work for Neil, and he winds up on the planning board. And in all of that time and all that work, Gene thought about the people who lived here. You know, development was important to Gene. We shouldn't be confused about that. But Gene understood that development and people could actually be compatible, and it can actually be done in the way in which the community is a part of it. And I think he understood the most important thing is when you start with people and ask them what you want a place to be, you get a much better conversation when planners walk into a room and say, I'm going to tell you what this place should be. Let the people tell us what they want these places to be. And they will get us to a place where everybody moves forward. No one wants to stagnate. Nobody wants things to just stay the same. Most people for that don't support that. So I always appreciated Gene's leadership, and it was a pleasure working with him. And I just, he worked with Neil Potter. He worked with Governor Glendening, who's going to be coming up next. And it just never changed his focus and his efforts. And he was, like I said, served on the planning board and unfortunately died way too young. And we didn't get the benefit from the full extent of his knowledge and what we could have done with his role on the planning board and his role in the community. But I am fortunate enough to have been influenced by him. I'm fortunate enough to have worked beside him and to work in the company of Mary Ellen and his kids. It was a great team that he was part of, and he was a great leader on that team. And I just wanted to say all that here because this park is fittingly named for somebody who shaped what this Silver Spring looks like, who insisted that citizens be involved in the shaping of that future. That is, to me, a really important trait, to understand that you can make progress working together, and that he was willing to take the lead on that and to get out front. And it's not an easy thing to do. It wasn't easy to work for Neil because yet he had to convince people that we were actually serious about doing things and that Neil wasn't just a no person. All these folks are so much more, and Neil is one of those people who is so much more. So again, thank you all for giving me a moment here. I really do feel honored to talk about Gene, and I'm so glad that this is something people are always going to know, and hopefully there'll be people around to tell the story of Gene and what he did, because the park's a great reminder. But at some point, somebody will say, why was this named after Gene? And that story is going to be as important as the park. Knowing why you decided to name something after Gene Lynch is important to people to understand the work he did and how this came about, because without his work, our task would have been a lot harder. So thank you all.
I think it's an indication of the impact that Gene had in Montgomery County, and of course through Montgomery County to the rest of the state, is evidenced by our unexpected but delightful to have former Governor Paris Glendening, who I'm going to like to speak now.
David, thank you very much. You may say unexpected, but I do have to tell you this, that I got an email from Maggie, and she asked whether I could be here. No, that's not correct. She told me I should be here. When Maggie says, please do this, you do it. And so I'm very, very pleased and honored to be here with the entire Gene Lynch family, and also the Gene Lynch team, and the elected officials, the county executive and council members, and so many others. I wanted to stop by, and I don't know, by the way, it might still be the influence that Gene has in a variety of different universes, but where I was the last 5 or 6 days, there was smoke, there was rain, Thursday there was hail and wind, and look at today. Gene, thank you. We appreciate that. Let me also just say I want to be very brief, but it's an honor and a personal pleasure to stop by today and remember our friend who was such a professional, such a colleague and work with over the years, a person of integrity, of fundamental basic honesty. And in a number of the positions that he had, there were temptations from elsewhere. And I could always depend on his professionalism and his integrity. He was in my administration. I worked with him when he was here in Montgomery County, but then he was in my administration as both the acting and then full-time Secretary of General Services, and then served the last 4 years as my acting and then full-time Chief of Staff as well. I will also tell you that among his contributions, he was probably one of the key people in the administration that helped with the full implementation of our smart growth policies. Everyone nowadays, all across the country, whether they agree or not, understands what smart growth is and understands what sprawl and waste is. And Gene was the person that was out there with new ideas about how to do this. And so, like we decided for financial incentives, but you don't give an incentive as you would, let's say, to a developer or something. Instead, he came up with an idea of live where you work. And we gave incentives to have people help buy their home if they could, in fact, to walk or take transit to work from that location. That's the type of thinking that he had. I particularly wanted to speak just for a moment today because when I saw there was very appropriately a park dedication in Gene's honor, I thought it would be a good opportunity to mention 2 other things. You know, it's interesting, when you do really good things in parks and stuff like that, it doesn't necessarily make the front page of the Washington Post. In fact, to tell you the truth, it often doesn't even make coverage at all. But there was 2 instances that he helped lead my administration. One was on the purchase of Chapman's Landing. Some of you may recall the battle over Chapman's Landing, the large tract of land in southern Maryland and Charles County. The development company already had the proposal for a high-density lakefront project that was accessible only by automobile in a very environmentally sensitive area. It had been approved in the Charles County growth plan. And then in 1998, we talked about it. We talked to some of the citizens as well. Marc, the very thing you were talking about, listen to the citizens. And the citizens talked about what was going to happen after that development was plopped down right in the middle of this open space. And we listened and we stepped forward. And I put Gene in charge of it. And the state of Maryland purchased the entire Chapman's Landing. You may recall that. That one did show up on the front page of the Washington Post. And Gene was key on that. There were lots of other people who helped. In fact, I see Judge Leahy over here back in a earlier career in life. She was partners with Gene in pulling that together. And it made such a difference. It would not have happened except for the fact that Gene knew the whole development process and how to get this headed in a different direction. The second big one was the purchase of Deep Creek State Park. Deep Creek State Park, again, Gene was key in pulling together a complicated arrangement. One key representative who was there as part of that team told me just yesterday when we were talking about this that I'm quoting directly, negotiating with the Penelac Power Company, they had a swarm of out-of-state lawyers and accountants throwing numbers at us, and Gene was never intimidated by that. In fact, I think he did the amortizations in his head on the spot. Now, when that was done, we ended up buying, if you're ready for this, Deep Creek Lake. Now, if you also think about that for a second, can you imagine what we had to do when Gene and I went to the state legislature and to the press and said, we just bought the bottom of the lake? But that's what we did. That's what you had to do in order to control the development all around it and the use of the lake and all as well. And so I thought, here we are, heart of Montgomery County, and if you go west, you see not the thumbprint, but a major, major imprint of Gene's work in Garrett County. If you go south, you see the major impact in Charles County there as well. These successes in the different ends of the state reflect the quiet, somewhat off the public media challenges that he undertook and that he did and did really well. Our state is better because Gene Lynch walked among us. And I would add one last quick footnote. I teach a course at Johns Hopkins University in the School of Business on sustainability, environment policy, and climate change. And just last Tuesday, I told him, I said, you know what we really need around the state and across the country is far more corners and all that become parklets. Parklets where people can gather and become a community. Parklets where we can have trees that help impact our environment and things like that. And then as I'm looking over my schedule, I said, hey, in 4 days, I'm going to a parklet. And so we actually took some pictures. I'm taking them back to the class, and I'm going to say, see, it works. Let me also, by the way, offer apologies. I'm going to have to slip out and will not be able to join you all later, but congratulations to everyone, and especially to the wonderful family.
Thank you, sir. Well, just it seems just a week or two ago, we had a lot of fresh, vibrant, and active faces and, on our new county council, and one of those who has been a delight for me to work with, and I'm sure you have noticed tremendous differences and energy coming out of your council member's office. So I'd like to have Kate Stewart come up and speak to us, your county council member.
Thank you, David, for all of your work on this and everyone's work, and for everyone coming today. So I'm a newbie to all this. I remember Mary Ellen coming up to me a couple of months ago and saying, it's going to open, finally. And here we are. And I just want to say what an honor it is as the new county council member representing this area to share this moment with all of you. And to get to, I unfortunately didn't know Gene, but over the last few weeks and months, I've gotten to know about his legacy and his work here in our county. And I am so honored to be here today with all of you, with his family, his children, his grandchildren. Because as a public servant, we all know that we hold these jobs temporarily. And our work, lots of times, may not be recognized, or we may not see it in our own lifetimes. But what we want to do is do the work so that we build strong communities for our future generations. And that each of us know that we're placeholders. These are not our jobs to have. These are our jobs to fill for a time, to work together for the betterment of our community. And what I've gotten to know about Gene is that he embodied that. And it is truly an honor for me now to stand here in this park with all of you and to think about all the people who are going to come here. This park is so perfectly located, right near the metro, in our downtown area. We've gotten rid of concrete, as Governor Glendening mentioned, and put in grass to bring down the, it's a little hot out here today. It is, we would be hotter if we were on concrete, I promise you. And people can stop here. Families who might be going to Children's Hospital for a visit, meeting up to go to the movies or one of our wonderful restaurants. This will be a place where people will gather in our community to seek a refuge and to sit and think. And I think from what I've known and gotten to know about Gene is that he would love it. And so thank you, Mary Ellen, thank you to his family, and thank you to everyone who made this possible.
I noticed that Delegate Jared Solomon has joined us. Delegate Solomon, welcome. I also forgot to mention earlier your Regional Services Center Director, Jacob Newman, is with us. Jacob? That's important because Jacob works with the urban district and many of the businesses around here. And later, when I turn this park over to Mike Riley from Maryland National Capital Parks, I'm going to say if you have any more questions that you need of the county, call Jacob, because I'm done. Again, we're delighted to have the opportunity to recognize Gene Lynch and to have his family. Are you guys having a family reunion somewhere or a gathering, or is this it? Okay, great. I'm going to say now, when we do the ribbon cutting, those of you that are able, I'd like the family to come and stand up behind the ribbon cutting up here so we get you in the picture, okay? You'll be cutting, and Mary Ellen, you're going to be cutting. They want the rest of the family to stand up here, but I think it's fitting that we close our program today by hearing from the family. And the family, I don't know if this was a drawing of lots, short straws, or whatever, but Janine Kohler, representing the family, would love to speak with us today. Oh, I'm going to give it to Mike Riley after Janine. That's right. Sorry. Janine, come on up. No, come on.
Oh. They're all coming to support me.
We're all here for you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Janine Kohler. And along with my siblings and my mother, I want to thank you all for coming today to honor the memory of my father, Gene Lynch. It is a joy to celebrate the opening of the Gene Lynch Urban Park. We are so grateful for all of the hard work that so many community members and county workers put in to make this dream a reality. Our father valued many things: family, hard work, faith, and education, just to name a few, but one of the most important things in his life was service. He lived a life of service to his family, to his neighbors, and to his community. It is impossible to move through Silver Spring without seeing his creativity, his generosity, and his hard work. From the houses he helped to build for our neighbors, to the bustling downtown center of Silver Spring that he helped to envision and bring to fruition, his spirit lives in this community. He was a leader, a teacher, a helper, and a genuinely good person whose selfless work benefited so many. He would have loved the smiles and laughter here today as we remember with joy and pride the amazing man that he was and his wonderful contributions. Thank you for coming, and enjoy the rest of this beautiful afternoon at the Gene Lynch Urban Park.
The joys of an urban park event. Well, the last affair for the morning is for, normally when I build a building, I give a key to the client, the department that I built it for. And I wasn't sure what to do here, whether it was a shovel or a gold-plated lawnmower or something. But it really has been a great partnership with Montgomery County Parks, and I'm going to ask Director Mike Riley to come and conclude our speaker list.
Thank you, David. Welcome, everybody. It's great to be here. There is no park rule against taking your shoes off and walking barefoot in the grass, so I encourage everybody to do that before you go. But again, I'm Mike Riley. I want to welcome all of you, and particularly Mary Ellen and the entire Lynch family, to the dedication of our newest park, named in honor of former Montgomery County Planning Board member Gene Lynch. I know it's taken a while to get to this point today, but I hope you all agree that this park proves the saying that good things do come to people who wait. I did get to work with Gene a little bit and get to know Gene during the brief time he was on the board, and I'm going to share a personal story in a moment. But I thought I would read the eloquent words of former Planning Board Chair Royce Hansen at the time the Planning Board voted to approve the naming of the park in Gene's honor. So this is February 7th, 2008. To provide a lasting legacy for a man who held public service jobs throughout Maryland, most recently as part of the 5-member Montgomery County Planning Board, the board today announced it will rename a park in downtown Silver Spring, the Eugene R. Lynch III Urban Park. Lynch, who died last week at age 50, was a Silver Spring resident who began his career as a civic activist. He went on to serve as chief assistant to Montgomery County Executive Neil Potter and as chief of staff to former Governor Paris Glendening, among many other political roles. More recently, he worked as chief of an investment company financing private and government development. Lynch, who joined the planning board last June, made an indelible mark, said Chairman Royce Hansen, who with the rest of the board approved the park renaming today unanimously in a resolution. And Hansen says he brought years of experience and wisdom to bear on both regulatory matters and master plans, on parks and on budgets and administrative issues, with a mixture of brilliant insight, tough judgment, and quiet persistence, Hansen said. So my personal story, when Gene came on the board, I was personally in charge of managing the project to try to get Park and Planning a new headquarters. It was called Silver Place, and we were trying to do a public-private development deal to get a developer, Bizzuto, to build a headquarters and mixed-use development on our old office building. And I was heading over to Bizzuto for a negotiation meeting on this difficult topic, and my phone rang, and it was Gene. And he introduced himself as Gene Lynch. I said, Commissioner Lynch, welcome to the planning board. And his next sentence was, this Silver Place project, the way you're approaching this makes absolutely no sense to me. So fast forward a year from there, the project went up in flames. We got a letter from then Council President Phil Andrews, very brief, very polite, very succinct, that said the County Council can no longer support the Silver Place project for a variety of reasons. So I realized right at that moment that Gene knew what he was doing and that he was a little bit of a visionary, because he called that one. So in addition to honoring Gene, I'm thrilled to be adding another true urban park to our inventory, adding vibrant, walkable urban parks in our most highly populated and growing areas like Silver Spring, Wheaton, and Bethesda is a top priority for the Parks Department. And we've been making significant progress on this front with many projects underway, and this one being delivered today. For example, in 2021, we purchased the former National Tire and Battery building, situated on an acre in South Silver Spring, just south of here, across from Denizens, which is a pretty famous landmark. And next month, we're going to demolish that building, and by 2024, we're going to have our next urban park up in an area that was historically underserved with parks in Silver Spring. So Dave touched on a little bit of the quirky history of land transactions between WMATA, the county, and Park and Planning that resulted in this land becoming a park. I'm not going to get into the weeds on this up here, but if anybody is curious, come see me after the event and I'll walk you through it. But it is definitely true to say this park has been 50 years in the making. I do want to recognize the great collaboration between the county, WMATA, and Park and Planning that got us here today. I particularly want to thank my friends Dave Dyson, Greg Ossett, and DGS, who I regularly work with on delivering great projects in Montgomery County. This quarter acre packs quite a bit in, much needed green space, swings, multiple seating options, beautiful landscaping, which comes from the nursery in Montgomery Parks, the Pope Farm irrigation, and irrigation under this grass so we can keep it green, and of course lighting so the park can be used at night. Another top priority for the Department of Parks in recent years has been to add more community building programs in our events like salsa nights, sunset yoga, acoustics and ales, movie nights, and much more. We do hope to program this area in partnership with our partners Jacob Newman and the Silver Spring Urban District to make sure there's a lot of good activity going on here. One final note about the park, even though it looks complete, there's still more to come. Montgomery Parks is in the process of awarding a contract to an artist to provide a public art component on the panel behind me. That selection process is underway, and after finalists have been chosen, the public, you will vote online to decide who the winner is. That's coming later this year. Please stay tuned. So in wrapping up, I just want to recognize some of my staff who have been instrumental in making this happen. I want to start with our very talented landscape architect, Linda Comas, who's been our point of contact, working with the county and with Trini Rodriguez to make sure that this park is as beautiful as it is. I want to recognize again our executive director, who I know had a working relationship with Gene back at the state in the old days, Asantha Chang-Smith, executive director of the commission. Andy Frank, Park Development Chief, who oversees all of our capital projects, Patricia McManus, who oversees our design sections, and then on our construction side, John Gamba and Ed Yukachev. And last but not least, let me recognize my deputy director, who helps me get all the good things done in the Parks Department, Mitty Figueredo, in the middle. And in closing, I just want to thank Mary Ellen and the entire Lynch family for their patience. I hope you agree that this beautiful park was worth the wait.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. All right, well, let's get an official opening and ribbon cutting going. So I understand that Michael Kay on my staff elicited the volunteer of some of the Lynch grandchildren to come up here and help us stretch out this ribbon. I'm going to ask Mary Ellen and Janine, you're going to be up here with scissors. Everyone else, the rest of the Lynch family, can we get you on this first step behind us here?
1, 2, 3, cut.